Trends come and go. So don't lose sight of the core principles. Seen this a lot in my 44 years. See all sorts of crazy trends. I remember in like the early 90s, every pub had to be an Irish themed pub. Do you remember that? And you had to paint them blue for some reason, even though you think if there's an Irish themed pub, they should be green. But there we go. Quite often they were blue. So it was that. Internet cafes. Do we have those anymore? Rarely. There's a few scattered around in odd little places, but not really. But they were the big thing, weren't they? I remember back in the day, and this was probably around about sort of year 2000-ish, when all the main banks were selling off their branches. And what they did, they'd have the freehold, they would own the branch, and they would sell them at auction mainly, in the auctions down in London, in the big commercial property auctions, and they would set up like a 20-year lease to themselves, and they would sell the branch to somebody, and somebody would go along and presumably put it into their pension fund, unless they were a small property company, in which case they put them into the portfolio. But the banks, being sneaky, what did they do? Very often they'd have something like a 10-year break clause in their lease, which meant they could then vacate after 10 years. Now, of course, what we didn't know at the time was, because everybody was super excited about this, because if you had a bank, if you had NatWest as your tenant, or Lloyds or Barclays, I mean, can you get any better than that? Are Lloyds Bank or Barclays or NatWest going to go bust? Are they going to have, well, nowadays we know, Michael, in those days we didn't think that, did we? We thought they were here forever. Are they going to default on their rent? Probably not. So they were like the best covenant of tenant that you could get, except sneakily they'd put in this sort of like 10-year break clause, which meant that after 10 years they could basically serve notice and go. Because what did they know that we didn't know? Well, internet banking and stuff came along. In my little town where I live, there used to be 3 banks. Guess how many banks we've got now? None. One of them's actually become a wine shop, and it's rather cleverly called itself the Wine Bank, which is quite interesting. But that's the closest you can get to a bank now is the post office, and the post office now does all the stuff which the banks used to do. They've gone. So all of those people who'd gone out and bought those properties,
45 minutes.
Perfect, thank you very much, who bought those properties, stuffed. Yep. Now, for those of you who are wondering, because we talk about sale and leasebacks, just so I'm not confusing you, if you try to do it on a residential property, you cannot do it. You can't buy a property off somebody and then rent it back to them. You can in commercial, and that's why the banks were able to do it. So there we go. So trends come and go. So don't get all sort of excited about these trends. At the end of the day, though, think about the core principles. What are we thinking about? We're thinking about buying decent properties in a decent location with a decent tenant. We're buying properties which will cash flow so we cover our costs. We're thinking about things which we can buy and add some value to. And if we're going to sell them on, we need to make sure we're going to sell them on at a profit. It's the basic stuff. Never forget the core principles, and don't get overexcited by whatever the sexy next thing in property is, because it will come and go. They always do. They always do. I hope you found this video useful and informative, and if you did, then please come over to my website www.thepropertyteacher.co.uk, where you'll find loads more great property related resources, including free special reports to download and my best-selling series of ebooks, which includes the Successful Property Renovators Workshop, 63 common defects in investment property and how to spot them. And if you're just starting out in property, or if you want to grow your portfolio, you may be particularly interested in the Successful Property Investors Strategy Workshop, in which I'll take you through exactly how I started and built my property portfolio, starting literally with none of my own money, and how I built a portfolio of £2 million worth of property in just 4 years. And that was starting from scratch. I'll take you through everything that I did right so that you can copy me and do the same. And I'll also show you everything that I did wrong so that you can avoid the mistakes that I made, and so that you can progress in property and be far more successful far more quickly than I ever was. And this is based upon my own real life experience, and it took me about 4 years to actually work out how to do property investing properly. But in the 200 pages in the Successful Property Investors Strategy Workshop, I'm going to show you all of that 4 years knowledge condensed down so that you can use it immediately. And until next time, here's to successful property investing.